Hello, welcome back to Fintech Live London. We've got another interview for you. We had rain and cloud earlier, but it's booming sunshine now. And I'm joined by Axel Cateland, who is the head of banking for Spendesk. Thank you very much indeed, Axel, for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'll start you off with a very easy question. Can you tell us what is Spendesk?
Spendesk is an online tool for spend management for SMBs. The goal for our clients is to be able to enable all of their employees to spend the company money when they need to do their job, and to do so they just have to request for a budget. And depending on if it's an online payment, they will get a virtual card. If it's a face-to-face payment, they're going to get a top-up onto their plastic card. If it's an invoice they have to pay, then the payment is going to be done by our platform, directly from the platform. And once that all the payment is done, we collect all of the information for the finance team to be able to automatically do the reconciling and the accounting in their main accounting software by exporting all of the data that we have, invoices and payment data, to their main accounting software.
And you've been on stage here this afternoon at FinTech Live London. One of the topics, of course, you talked about was biometrics, which is a massive topic within, the future of money, the future of fintech. Can you tell us, first of all, how you see the potential future use cases for biometrics and what consumers will be able to do using biometric technology?
I mean, for me, we're already way into biometric. As I was saying, we all have a portable biometric reader in our pockets, which is called our phone. And for me, there are so many use cases like payment, like access to your online banking, that we already can access through online banking, which is for me a very sleek and smooth way of interacting with digital, because you don't have to remember anything. It's very convenient. There might be more use cases coming. I mean, we saw some level of friction. They called hands-free biometric payment, like with Amazon did in their store, where you just have to walk out the door with your goods. I don't know how much of that will really get adoption, because I think people have the willingness to have an intent for payments. I don't know how much the hands-free part is really game changer. There will probably be more use cases by governments, like being able to. I mean, we already have our passports with biometrics, so we can go through frontiers like that. But it could be that at one point Apple manages to get governments to digitize our passport into our phone, and then we'll be able to authenticate and get really online citizen authentication via biometric in such a way. So there might be use cases, but in pure banking, I think the banks already we are well down the road of accepting and adopting a biometric, both face recognition and fingerprints for daily use of banks.
And you mentioned about the technology that smartphones, 90% of consumers have smartphones. So we have that we can use for biometrics. Do you think we will need additional technology or additional infrastructure to accelerate adoption of biometrics at all?
There were projects to try to centralize the biometric knowledge, having some central database, in most cases governmentally owned, of all the biometric of all the citizens of a country, to make some sort of interoperable network of biometric access points. I mean, this is such a huge endeavor to collect all of that information, to secure all of that information, that I think the Apple and the Google of this world have done an amazing job at democratizing biometric with the devices. And I don't know how much of a centralized knowledge of our biometric data is really useful. So for me, the infrastructure is almost already. I mean, it's already there with our phones, and I feel more. I trust my phone to keep that data locally. I don't know how much I would be trusting a central database that is potentially more prone to a hacker to collect to steal all of that data. And compared to a password, you can change your password. It's difficult to change your fingerprints or your face. So potentially, I'm glad it's stored on my phone, and I have a close look at that.
It's very, very difficult to change your fingerprint, of course. We mentioned trust, and trust is a big issue within biometrics. Of course, most consumers, even if they start using biometrics, they will never fully understand the technology or the encryption behind it or how safe it really is. How important do you think that is to get consumers on side and to foster consumer trust, and how difficult will that be? Are they going to trust biometrics?
I guess we already do trust biometric somehow. It could have been. I mean, it was a question when I was at Mastercard 5 years ago. It was a question, and also there was a question around trust by the banks, because at the moment we don't use our PIN anymore to pay. So the banks is delegating the authentication, knowing that it is really Alex making the payments. Is in fact Apple's responsibility now, and the banks are trusting Apple to do a good job at that. So one of the challenge we had back then was how much of, I mean, are the banks really going to trust the biometric technology and the delegation to Apple for that authentication? It looks like the banks accepted it. You can now use biometric for online banking to trigger quite large transfers. When you use your phone for payments, there's no limit. The 50 pound or 50 euros limit is non-existent. You can pay tens of thousands of euros in one tap with your phone, just because you put your finger on the sensor. So I guess consumers do trust it, and the banks do trust it. But as usual with trust, if there's a breach, if something goes wrong, it's going to be very difficult to potentially regain that trust. So that's where the I mean, all of the ecosystem, the technology ecosystem, needs to be super careful with the care they put in keeping that information really secure and avoiding a breach or something that could destroy the trust into in the system.
And of course, it's one thing if payment information is breached or if there's a data loss. That's a bad thing. But it'd be catastrophic, would it not, if it was a consumer's biometrics? Is there the greater risk there, particularly around concerns around nefarious actors falling into the wrong hands, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it is indeed. But I would say, compared to like hacking into the servers of a SaaS product and stealing passwords, it is large scale, easily large scale. If you access one server, if you access, I don't know, the Facebook servers or the LinkedIn servers, you get a lot of password in one go. Getting into every single phone to steal the biometric data is probably way more expensive and way more difficult. So I would say a large scale compromise of biometric data is probably difficult. I mean, there were research and successful hacks of biometric, where some researcher did just based on the fingerprint on a glass in a bar. They didn't manage to make a picture of that, a 3D print of and they made a silicone 3D print of the someone else's fingerprint, put it on their finger, and did unlock the phone of the victim. It was a consentful victim, but so it is possible. But as usual with fraud, it's a question of return on investment. Researcher did it just to show that it was possible. Would a large-scale fraudster try to do it and gain enough money from that hack? I don't know. It's like, when you look at it, cheap cards can be broken, but it's when I was working for Mastercard, we had discussion around the goal of the security of the chip is to make it so expensive that it will never be profitable to hack into a chip. If you spend 2 million euros breaking a chip, you will never get 2 million euros from the transaction you get from that from replicating that chip. So that's exactly what we are looking at. What would be the return on that investment to have a fingerprint 3D printed on silicone? Probably one or two transactions, but probably not much more. So I don't think it is a real I mean, as long as we don't have a centralized database of biometric data, which I think a lot of governments already regulated against, I would say as long as it's local in our passports or our phones, we are in a good place to have it, to keep it secure.
There's risk, of course, with every new technology, so it's good to know that there is some sense of balance there. What do you think, in your opinion, does the roadmap look like in terms of the adoption, the rollout of biometrics? When do you think we should start to see biometrics becoming more mainstream, and how will that manifest itself, do you think?
I mean, when you look at it, I don't know what the percentage. I don't have the latest numbers, but the penetration of iPhones and smartphone is really high already. So I would say it is already very much Face ID and fingerprint readers are already mainstream. The usage of that for, I think one of the key element that we don't have yet, and I don't know if we will ever get that, is at the moment the fingerprint is a re-authentication method, a re-identification method. But the first time you for example, when you want to open an account in a bank, they're going to ask for a lot of documents, and they will then ask you for your biometric to be able to re-authenticate you along the way. Will there be a way one time for a bank account to be opened with just one fingerprint, because there's a way for all the banks to share, because you already opened an account and shared your biometric, and all the banks do share that central. But again, we would be talking about interoperability and a central database of fingerprints, which to me is probably a risk we will never take.
We're talking about open banking for fingerprints now.
Yeah, indeed.
We're here at Fintech Live London, of course, pretending, doing our best that we're not being blinded by roaring sunshine. How are you finding the show so far?
It is super interesting. I met a lot of very interesting people just off stage. The conferences were super interesting. The one about open banking, with open banking, the consortium being on stage was really good. The speakers are really good. It's a really good show. First time I'm here. Just arrived from Paris this morning, but I'm enjoying. It was a good investment of my hours of sleep.
Well, thank you very much indeed for coming, Axel. It's a pleasure to talk with you and to find out what Spendesk is doing and indeed thinking in this area. We're here, of course, at Fintech Live London all today, all tomorrow. We'll be bringing you lots more interviews, so stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.